Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics. We get started, as we do each and every week, by introducing my two co-hosts, Reuben, wrestler.
Oh, hello there.
And Aaron Campbell.
Hello.
Oh, hello. And we get started, as we do, with the first pick. Now, our first pick this week is there are shadows over Innistrad spoilers, and not just spoilers, some really big story elements that sort of came to light, if you will. I'm going to bring up on the screen now Arlen Cord. Now, Arlen Cord was spoiled in the story/Planeswalker section. She has a biography, I think, but one of the things I wanted to point out kind of immediately was that this is clearly not a 18-year-old supermodel. Everything's perfect. In fact, she's an older woman, and I think that's fantastic. And I think, you know, there's a lot of really cool aspects to that. And it even has an image gallery with both her as a human, and then you can see her as a werewolf, where she still has some femininity, and certainly is vicious regardless. Yeah. One of the things it notes in the flavor for her sort of biography is that, you know, she had her spark hit, and when she turned into a werewolf, and all of a sudden she's a werewolf in a different plane, and then she comes back, and then she can go back and forth really easily. So that makes you think that she's going to be sort of a Garrick the Veil Cursed, you know, kind of flip flopping, or whatever. Aaron, how do you feel about, you know, this Planeswalker as it's been spoiled so far?
I'm really excited about it, and I was actually thinking about Garrick. Like, I would love to see them kind of tussle. Like, I think that would be a really awesome grudge match to see. But what really interested me about her biography was they sort of hint to the fact that angels are going to be the antagonists in this set. You know, we saw that there was a giant card that was leaked the other day, and I think it was called Clip Wings. Mm-hmm. I think that was mentioned. And yes, based on the flavor text and the art in that card, that also leads you to believe that something's going on with the angels, and they're starting this kind of really screwed up inquisition. And it seems to be, you know, her bio kind of supports that, and that she's having to, you know, fight the angels. And now I'm really curious, like, what's causing the angels to, you know, go loca? Because for a while there, you know, and everything leading up to this point, you know, Avacyn seemed to be on the side of good, and so did the Powerpuff Girls. That's what they call the three angels. And yeah. It makes sense. It makes sense. But, you know, we just heard nothing about them having any sort of a bad side to them. And there seems to be quite a shift. And so I'm curious what kind of brought about this. I'm wondering if it's authentic or if it's madness or
the idea that the shadows over Innistrad are the angels' wings.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's really cool.
So, Reuben, I'll let you talk, but let's bring up the spoiler so you can talk about it as well, and kind of and how you feel about it. Now, Clip Wings, also known as Flyabolic.
I was just going to say, you already gave it a great nickname. I'm just ready. I'm so ready.
Flyabolic
I got that.
Edict.
I found it on Reddit. I'm not going to claim that I created it, but on the Reddit, the user, God bless you, did a great job. Clip Wings is a common, hey popper, for a green and a generic mana. That's an instant that each opponent sacrifices a creature with flying. So it's great in multiplayer. It's a powerful effect. Sigarda still flips you off. Yeah, that's what happens. But it is the flavor text, as Aaron noted, which is really awesome. On it, you have this angel, the picture of just like this angel super pissed, and she's got this flaming sword, and there's like blood on her wings, which is awesome. And she's pissed, and down here in the flavor text, these people have bows and arrows on her. It says, "It is a grim duty to save the world from those created to protect it." Now, if you imagine a world where you have the Hell Vault, and you had Gristlebrand locked in there with Avacyn. If Avacyn was a villain, Gristlebrand is the worst, you know, the worst of the two evils. So if you're going to have those two in there, you're going to clearly say, well, the demon, the big scary demon, is the bad guy. And so when she defeated him, you're like, oh man, the good guys won. And all of a sudden it's like, no, we're good. Reuben, go.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, big, powerful things. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So if you're the most powerful thing on the plane and you have flying and indestructible, and, you know, you're looked at basically as a godlike creature on the plane of Innistrad, you know, maybe that's not great to just sit there and not be challenged ever. And, you know, I think it's really cool that Magic's really been stepping up their story game, like as we've discussed a couple of times on the show. And this is just another way that they're doing it. And now white, the color of purity and healing salve and life gain and all the things that are good and right with the color pie, it's going to be the bad guys in this set, and I think that that's super cool.
That's
we
so
haven't
sweet.
we haven't had that in a while. Not since like Elish Norn kind of Suture Priest era have we had anything even close to having White be the main antagonist of a set, and so I'm super excited to see how they switch that around. The Shadows over Innistrad story page has a countdown on it with Unravel the Madness, which is going to unravel in 19 hours, I guess. I don't know what that means, but they've sort of been stepping up their story game, getting people really amped and excited. And I always loved the story for Innistrad anyway, and so I'm super excited for everything that's about to happen.
So the idea that like the best villains are the ones that are often, at least you can understand how they're that way or why they're that way. They have good reasoning other than like, I'm just evil and I hate everything and want everything to die. The idea that they're like this inquisition to like purify the realm and destroy all the unpure and unclean and all other stuff. So if you bring up Arlen Cord's biography, here at the end is the most telling part. So Arlen is desperate to ensure the survival of her kind. So in a world where Avacyn either curse muted, which means turned them into a wolfear, which means they never turn back to human, they're only human,
right.
they're wolf forever, or killed hundreds of werewolves. This Avacyn, this super, holy, saved everybody angel, where the Angels Church is launching a new inquisition more terrifying than anything they've done before. Arlen fears that if she does not act, the lycanthropes of Innistrad could meet a very real and permanent end very soon. So again, I love the fact that you can kind of understand why like they do that, because they feel that's the right thing for the plane, and that's how you cleanse the world of all this evil, because everything that isn't them is evil and everything that isn't human is evil. Yeah. But all of a sudden the vampires and the werewolves are trying to stop these crazy angels who are killing everybody, which is just brilliant.
Yeah,
I also like the way, that they kind of reference the curse mute, and even, even reading about the curse mute before the show, when we get ready for the show, we do our little research, and it doesn't really sound like a great solution. Like, you're reading it, and so she's basically saying to these people, I can't remove the curse of lycanthropy, but I can merge you together, and you get to hang out with me. Like, that's literally one of the things. It's like, if they promise to serve as guardians of humanity, she will fuse the two aspects together. So she's basically like, almost like, I couldn't help but think of Mean Girls, where it's like, y'all still get to be terrible, but I'll let you sit with me. And it's just like, what? Like, what kind of deal is that? And it sounds like, when you read the werewolf bio, when you read Arlen's bio, it sounds like there were werewolves that didn't want this, that there were some werewolves that maybe were comfortable with their abilities or their life, and being stuck in this body wasn't something they wanted. And, I think that's another great angle. You mentioned somebody not being the typical mustache twirling villain. Here's somebody who really thinks they're doing good. They really, really believe that, but you didn't give everybody a choice. You just sort of bestowed it on everybody, and there were some wolves that didn't want that. And I think that's always a really great starting point for a white themed villain, is somebody who really, really thinks they're doing good, and that's not good, is sometimes subjective.
Which is awesome as usual. So the spoilers have been sweet. Now, the last thing I wanted to bring up was another bit of super cleverness, which is the Hanweir Chronicle. Now, if you go to hanweirchronicle.com, and I have it pulled up on the screen, you have your basic kind of WordPress blog thing, and when you scroll down, all of a sudden you're seeing this picture of the cardboard package that was sent on Twitter to Oliver. No, not Oliver Hayfield. It was sent to a Spanish vlogger, as I understand it.
Yeah, Ray Wombat. I think
Wombat,
was
thank you.
His username.
Right, and so then you scroll down more.
I've read his stuff before.
Yeah, you scroll on some more, and you see the town of Hanweir declares itself sovereign province. So then all of a sudden, here's this intrigue around Hanweir and what happened, and they wanted to secede from Gavany and all that stuff. And there's this really cool picture of like a drawing. I'm guessing, is that the author? I'm not sure what that.
Yeah, that's the editor-in-chief. That's Oliver Hayfield, editor-in-chief of the Hanweir Chronicle.
Oh, I see.
In lithograph form, I guess.
Nice. Yeah, I was down there below it, but regardless, that's who it is. And so Wizards is really kind of, they got a plan, and it's pretty intricate. Now, normally they like to do really sweet, intricate plans, but this is kind of on another level, and I appreciate it because Innistrad, above all things, has been known as the ultimate flavor block. The one where you sink your teeth into it, and it's so cool, and there's so much drama, and there's so
I
much.
see what you did there.
There's just, and there's a lot that you can kind of, sort of really enjoy about Innistrad, and all that stuff resonating. Now, one of the cards that was spoiled over the past week is Brain in a Glass Jar.
Yeah, I saw that.
Brain in a bottle. Is it Brain in a bottle?
It's Brain in a Bottle. I'm not sure what the last name is, because I think it was Japanese or something. But regardless, it was a 2-mana artifact, and 1 mana tap, put a counter on it. You may play an instant or sorcery card equal to the number of counters on Brain in a Jar.
Yeah.
It was.
And then the other ability was like Scry X if you remove X counters from it.
Right. So I don't want to get that wrong, so I'm looking that up. So feel free to tell me about your opinion.
Well, I know that you must put the counter on. Like, there were some people that were really excited about it and thought of like suspend cards, like Living End, but the counter is not optional. It's not either vial where you may put a counter on and leave it with 1 counter for the rest of the game. When you activate it, you must put the counter on, and then the card that you cast has to be that exact casting cost. So that does put a little bit of a hindrance on it, but it's still a fun card.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
we're used to jar of eyeballs is why we thought it was jar.
Right. So the translation is Brain in a Jar. It's a 2-mana rare artifact. 1 tap, put a charge counter on it. You may cast an instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Brain in a Jar from your hand without paying its mana costs. 3 tap, remove X charge counters from Brain in a Glass Jar. Scry X. So it's no Aether Vial. Now, look, I know Aether Vial, and this is no Aether Vial. Like, I'm just saying that was the number 1 card that people kept bringing up as to what this thing is, blah, blah, blah. No, this is no Aether Vial. However, if anything else, I think this could be an amazing casual card, but it's possible when you have the ability to cheat things, when you have the ability to take advantage of, like, suspend spells or spells that have, like, weird drawbacks or whatever, that maybe this could actually get somewhere.
Right.
The art's creepy too.
Yeah, the art's obviously good.
The
art for Innistrad is going to be amazing. I think that the putting a charge counter as part of the effect removes any of the 0 casting cost suspend card shenanigans. So I think it's basically impossible to put counter on it unless you like turn it into a creature and have a Malira in play, but that's like really jumping through a lot of hoops. The interesting part about this card for me in terms of looking at it through the lens of a constructed card is that you can cast sorcery spells at instant speed. So you can end of turn a Flame Slash or something like that.
Right.
Things that care about end of turn effects, for example. I guess Days Undoing is like the only one in Modern that would actually be anything, although that's kind of sweet. But like things like Final Fortune that have end of turn effects and stuff like that might be able to see play with Brain in a Bottle, Brain in a Jar, whatever it is. It's you're gonna have to jump through a lot of hoops to make it work. It's possible. About 10% of weird cards like this end up being tournament staples just because of the amount of sheer words that are on the card that has to be good. You know what I mean? And so. We'll see. We don't even know the contents of the rest of the set yet. We have 2 cards, and it's tough to look at them in context.
Sure.
But I, in the context of Modern, sure, this card could go in something like a red-blue Storm deck that has a lot of 1 and 2 casting cost sorceries that want to be cast at instant speed if they have the opportunity. So who knows?
So
Final Fortune, isn't that the red card with like the toilet paper hats and they're like fighting? Am I thinking of something else?
Yeah, and wow. Toilet paper. All right. Anyway.
Yeah, that's not what I think of first when I think.
Not where I was going, but yeah,
isn't that the card like you lose the game if something happens?
Take an extra turn, you lose the game at the end of
that turn, lose the game.
It looks like toilet paper.
So anyway, I have the image for Brain in a Jar pulled up. It's super cool. The image is no longer where it originally was. The image is no longer on the Japanese play site. Now, my guess as to what happened was this was their official spoiler, and they accidentally uploaded it, or they accidentally spoiled it early.
I read that somebody had typed in the address with a future date, and that's how they were able to find it.
Well, there you go. So
yeah,
so that to me is, it's one of those, like, it's a flub, yes, but like, here we are.
That's like the standard flub, though. Like that happens every set.
Right, but
somebody accidentally leaves a URL unlocked or something like that. That's a standard.
So regardless, there's the card. I think it's really sweet, and I love the flavor of it. Again, it's super awesome, and again, if it's good, I think that's awesome. So high five. We're going to move on here from the first pick, and we're going to go a little bit into the red zone. Now, today I had a conversation. I think it was yesterday. I had a conversation with PV. with Paulo Vitor, where he was talking about some friends were lamenting that they could not play in GP Bologna due to it being maxed out. It hit the cap of the players that were possible. Now I agree. Even with PV himself, that I am not trying to argue with him in terms of the and I'll get back to that in terms of the in terms of those who are upset about it. I'm saying, like, they can lament the fact that it's already at its cap, therefore they can't play. Not so much I'm so angry that I was going to play and no longer I'm not playing. Right. Regardless, it kind of started a dialogue about Grand Prix, about the logistics of those things, about why they can't accept more people. Why did you not know there were going to be more than 2,000 people who wanted to play in this thing? GP Bologna, honestly, insanely juiced. And so maybe they were like, 2,000 is a stretch, so we really got to juice this thing. So now they have Hangerback Walker playmats, Gifts Ungiven playmats, and Aethervial playmats because GPs need 3 of them. Really?
Yeah,
anyway,
I mean...
like, they denied 2 other GPs really sweet playmats. That's all I'm saying. But regardless, the idea that these things cannot be, like, why can't you just add another 500 people? Why can't you just add another 1,000 people? Just call the conference center and just be like, yo, I want to fit in these people, whatever. It's not how it works. Spaces that are large enough to hold this many people, first of all, pretty rare. They're rare because they take a lot of maintenance, a lot of upkeep, a lot of investment in order to create a room and facilities in order for people to do things on a convention-type basis. So imagine you're running a Grand Prix. You are told a sort of a general area that you want to be in, and you have to do it a year in advance. And you have to say, I'm going to throw the dart and hope I hit the right number of people, hope I have enough promotions to get all the people there. And if it hits its cap, then high five. That is a positive. We have GP Costa Rica that Christian Calcano is like, hey, I'm pre-reg for this thing. Yeah. Why? Because it's a 500-person Grand Prix. That's the max. That's as far as it goes. There was a really interesting tweet from Jason Flatford, who's a level 3 judge, works at Star City Games, and he tweeted, don't make the mistake of assuming that all TOs want infinitely large events. Yeah. There's even a lot of, there's plenty of sort of ideas been thrown around about a Grand Prix that's only for 500 people in the U.S., but you pay $150 to go. You get like you'll be in a super posh ballroom. You'll get catered lunch, maybe even catered dinner. You'll get all the sweet promos. You'll get guaranteed artist time. Why? Right. Because when you only have 500 people and you can have an incredible experience. And if you try to accommodate 10,000, it's a job. It's a huge monster mountain of a task. And so when when Eternal Masters is announced and there's no ridiculous, insane GP to go along with it, I certainly understand. Even to do the Modern Masters thing every 2 years is a huge undertaking. And I don't think they really said, well, what we really want to do is another, a 10,000 person event every year, which is why they need to take my convention idea and run with it. Wizards, that one's free. You can take that one. You can go. But Reuben, you and I, we work together on these types of events, and the spider web of things that go outward as you try to accommodate for so many players. Yeah, but this is why it's a red zone topic. Look, you haven't been a Magic player really in a long time, right? You're like kind of out of touch. Okay. I'm gonna say. Wow. Look, I'm not trying to start a thing here. I'm just saying that all the players want is to play as much Magic as they can possibly get their hands on. Sure. All the players want is to watch as much Magic as they can possibly get their hands on. When people say, no, we're only doing this, and we're only doing this, that doesn't sound good to us. Right? And I'm kind of out of touch, too, on a scale of Magic players. So is an out-of-touch player trying to tell an out-of-touch player... Am I going to have to be the type? Am I going to have to separate you two? I'm the 1,000-year-old man telling the 2,000-year-old man what the kids are up to these days, right? It's not. This isn't. We don't. But when you have someone like Christian Calcano, who's like boots on the ground every GP, right? When you have people, I saw Hayden Bedsoul was another player that I saw was like, yeah, I pre-regged, already going, and it's like months out, might as well be a year away. Who knows? Mm-hmm. You look at the last Grand Prix Costa Rica that happened in 2012, it was all pros. This might be the most stacked top 8 of a GP I've ever seen. Shuhei, David Scharfman, Ben Stark, Willie Edel, Josh Utter-Layton, David Ochoa, AJ Soccer, Pascal Maynard. Wow. Was the top 8. Wow. Grand Prix Costa Rica 2012. Attendance,
364. So
Wow.
Magic's gotten more popular since 2012.
But still.
You can probably expect maybe almost 1,000 people if they didn't cap it. But you have to put a cap on these things because you can't afford the most lavish ballroom in every city that you go to. It's there's two sides to this coin. It's the players want as much Magic as they can, and so I can see it from the player's perspective. Okay. But for the most part, I'm an old man like you. I understand it from the TO perspective of like, look, you can't just, put your chips in the middle a year in advance, hope for the best, hope the weather's good, hope there's nothing that interacts with it like like some weird sporting event in the same city that has happened in the past. I feel the pain on both sides.
So here's the sides we have. We have your side, we have my side, and now we're going to have Aaron's truth. Yeah. Because somebody here won money playing Magic over the past week.
Right. And it wasn't us.
Neither of us.
I mean, it was only $200, but I mean,
you brought it up a few times. Come on now. Don't be all like, it was just,
Hold on. I see something on your shoulder. I'm trying to get that off there.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
I think I'm going to kind of sit in the middle with both of you. I think this and this is something that, to be fair, the TO really doesn't talk about. You can kind of understand that. I went to the TCG 50K in December, I think it was late December, was it? And I had to talk with, I had a really nice conversation with Alan, the guy who runs Pastimes. And, he told me like what it costs just to even get a concession stand, where like, in order for them to get a concession stand at the Milwaukee Delta Center, he had to guarantee them like so many $100 per hour, or like just in terms of like people. And then even amenities such as Wi-Fi, like in order to get Wi-Fi, you have to guarantee the venue that you are bringing in a certain amount of traffic and a certain amount of dollars. And if you can't do that, you don't get nice things, plain and simple. And, even opening up a wall, I remember when we went to Vegas and we thought the venue was big already. And then they were like, oh no, there's more on the other side.
We're opening up another, yeah.
And you see that with a lot of venues, that just because they have the capability to do that, it costs so much money just to do that. And if you can't fill that entire space, so opening that wall for like 50 people is really not worth it. Like, again, you have to guarantee the venue that you're going to fill that space. And, on the one hand, I wish that they would talk about this so that it is more transparent and people would finally get it. Because again, I think this is one of those cyclical things that we just keep coming back to. Like you mentioned the Women in Magic articles, that we just keep coming back to this. We keep coming back to this issue of why don't we have Wi-Fi? Why is this so expensive? And it'd be really nice if just for once and for all, we're like, okay, this is why. Like, this is the last time we're going to talk about this. And you start giving people dollar signs, and you start giving people attendance quotas, and you just say, this is why. And hopefully people will finally get it. But there's just a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that I think it would blow people's minds if they knew how much went into it, and the promises that the TOs have to make, and the things that the venues ask of us. And it's just a lot. There's a lot of fingers in that pie.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Magic has grown so much. Like, it's tough for people like us to remember, where we've been playing the game forever. But 50% of the people that play Magic now weren't playing Magic 2 years ago. Yeah. And so the game just is so cyclical, but just keeps growing as well. There are just so many people who want to go to Grand Prix that it's all growing pains, right? It's all, the same issue with the PTQ system. It's Magic's getting too big for its own britches, and so these are the kind of changes that it's going to have to deal with. It's a tough needle to thread for WotC organized play.
And ultimately, I do feel like, that we are sacrificing quality for squeezing in all of these people too. You mentioned your idea, Evan, of really reducing that cap in order to give people a better experience. And, I think we all maybe have different standards, but I have to say, I would really like to I wasn't around in like the good old days, I guess you could say, but I would really like to know how much better a GP would be if we weren't all, as they say, asses to elbows, and we weren't just, scrounging for playing that space, and the judges weren't stretched so thin, and we really were able to just give people a better experience. And I, for one, would be completely happy paying for that. And I would like to believe that other people would be too, but, I just think... What?
There's a problem. There's a problem.
Give me the problem. Take me on,
right,
Reuben.
Here's the problem. Ready? Here it is. Okay. When you change the sizes of buy-ins for Grand Prix, when you have a $100 buy-in here and a $50 buy-in here and $500 buy-in here, you know what that sounds like? sounds like gambling. Magic is never going to cross that threshold.
You're
Even
right
if you
about
don't
that.
change the price, even if you don't change the prize structure, that's who you're fighting against. Magic wouldn't even put a Grand Prix in Las Vegas for 15 years for fear of being associated with gambling. You think they're going to change the different buy-ins for different cities? Hell no, they're never doing that.
Well, but the buy-ins the entry fees are set by the organizer.
Okay.
So
you
worth.
think an organizer? Okay, so let's go down this rabbit hole. An organizer sets a GP price at $400, and says, it's the same prize payout, still, $5,000 to first place or whatever it is, $8,000 to first place. I don't even know what it is anymore.
10,000.
Old out of touch old man.
Yeah, tell him the other guy who's out of touch,
Shake
how
your
out
hand,
of
Reuben,
touch he
shake your
is.
hand.
Sure. All right, $10,000 to first,
Old
but
man
instead of
yells
it
at
being
cloud.
instead of it being a $60 entry fee, it's a $400 entry fee. Same prize payout. You kind of don't love that, but 17 different playmats, and everyone gets a gold-plated life counter and whatever it is that you're doing to try to reduce the amount of people who are entering by raising the minimum buy-in stakes, right? Now let's not call them stakes because that's going to make it sound even worse again.
Geez,
But
here we go with the stakes.
but is that a thing that's reasonable to put on a tournament organizer? What tournament organizer is going to go like, you know what, we're going to make the most brilliant, we're going to make Grand Prix great again. Is what we're going to do. We're going to lower the number of people who come in. Everyone's going to have elbow room,
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
But is it
It's
any
gonna be
more
terrific.
reasonable? I mean, look at what we already expect of TOs. I mean, is it, again, you're at the expectation that TOs have to open a wall for just 50 people, the expectation that you should be allowed to pre-register 5 hours before the event, and that's an expectation that people have. I would argue that the things we already expect from TOs are kind of ludicrous. And so my point, I agree with you on the gambling thing, but my point was that I feel that if we do scale these caps back, I think that the overall quality of the event would improve because of that, and that's something I would really like to see. I think we've been kind of settling for a while. I'm sorry, I said it.
I just think hashtag make GPs great again.
I also noticed
too
that
good.
my Trump voice and my Bernie Sanders voice are exactly the same. I accidentally was just like, let's make GPs great again. We got to work for the middle class. It's exactly the same voice.
Now, see, this would be a good time to interject with my Helen voice, but that wouldn't go.
Also,
right?
now I have to talk about the Magic middle class, about people not like me, because I'm a terribly old man that doesn't even play Magic, but people who are working on a budget, college students who are, only playing GPs over the summer because they're not in school and can only go to opens that are 4 to 6 hours away. People who are actually trying to do the grind but don't have the resources. Now you're telling them that the barrier to entry to win this event is there's also a barrier of entry to just enter the event.
I wore a really
but
bad shirt to try to argue this.
I understand. It's just either way. I will note that the Grand Prix situation is always interesting. This is not going to be the last time we talk about this. This is one of these cyclical arguments. And the last thing I'll say is it reminds me a lot of IT work. When you're doing a great job in IT and you're keeping everything running, no one comes up to the IT guy and go, "Thank you so much for making sure that server hasn't gone down in 3 months." No,
Right.
like when the event's just going and everyone's having a good time and everybody has the judge that they need and they can go up there and sign for the events and it's not a huge hassle. They don't go up to TO and go like, "Dude, high five, you did great," blah blah blah. They're like, "What are you doing here? You're just over there standing, chilling out. You didn't do nothing. You're just watching it happen." It's
Unless you know what you're looking for, you
Right.
don't know, you just don't even see it.
right. And there's been events that have gone poorly and people had no idea. There's events that's gone better than ever and people had no idea in terms of comparison, because a lot of people just don't know about the behind the scenes work. But organizers, they work really hard. It's a hell of a job. It's really tough. And for an organizer to say 500 people is what we got, deal with it. It is what it is, and I don't think you can really hate on that guy or that person to say that, well, when we ran it 4 years ago or whatever, we had 380. We should be able to hit 500. All the pros are going to buy their plane tickets because that's going to be like the best EV GP ever. And so, more power to them. It didn't need to be a Costa Rica GP for 4,000 people.
Right.
It needed to be what it needed to be for. Right. But if they did, Grand Prix New York City and they said only 2,000 people and it's going to cost $300, but it's going to be the greatest thing you ever had. And
It's going to be gold plated. Yeah.
It's going to be all gold plated.
I have an idea of where we should host this event.
Just saying.
Will it actually be in New York City, or will it be adjacent like they've been doing?
Right, across the river or whatever.
Right.
And be like, yeah.
If you're paying $800,000 for an entry fee, then I guess it's going to be in New York City or in Boston or in these cities that we've never been able to hold magic events in.
Boston.
But
I'd go
where we're
to.
You
going
never
next,
Yeah, wherever.
Where we're going next is Infinite. And going Infinite, there was a list that was spoiled.
Oh, great.
Now, this is 100% rumor.
Yeah, this is all
This is all speculation. Let's make sure that's clear. But it's fun to talk about and think about. Somebody on Reddit, actually came from MTG Salvation, but on Reddit had a thread that said, hey, here's From the Vault lore. Because my buddy was Skyping me and he pulled some cards out of the trash and they said discard the back of them and all this other crazy stuff. And it's like, it's one of those like crazy, if
Like
this ends up being ridiculous and silly and false, well, you had a heck of a story attached to it. From the vault lore, from what he had mentioned, was a lot of sort of older cards from the Urza era, the Phyrexian Arena, Kamal Pit Fighter, Urtai the Corrupted. Momer Vig with new art, which I think they spoiled. I think everyone can agree that the spoiler page for the announcement page for From the Vault lore is Momer Vig. Garrick Apex Predator, Rurik Thar, Konda Lord of Aganjo, Risk the Redeemed. Now the money card, Dark Depths, and the token is Dark Depths. That he notes is the same art but doesn't have the weird foiling. Legacy Weapon, Mirari, that supposedly has new art. Now it's weird though because Mirari's already been in the From the Vault. So, and lastly, Final Judgment, Jin-Gitaxias, Memnarch.
Excuse me, I'm allergic to Memnarch.
It's all right. And a card that we've never heard of Vojak the Elderhorn. Now, Vojak the Elderhorn, whatever, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but again, I think this is kind of weird and funny in and of itself. He has no idea what this Vojak person does other than it costs 2 green and 4 generic mana, and his art is some burly-looking kind of Viking dude with a single giant deer horn, multi-horn thing on one side, and the other side is broken off. But he notes that all these cards are ripped in half, and everything is just kind of a big mess.
His buddy found them in a trash can or something ridiculous, and these were from a discarded print run, from like a fake print run or something.
Well, like a test
not a fake print run, test print run. Yeah.
Right. So it's a little silly, but it's one of those things where it's like there's just enough cards where you go like, really, 2 Kamigawa cards to go like, this is a list I could see existing.
Well, yeah. So I have many feelings, and some of them are about this topic, and so I'll talk only about those. One of the feelings I have is that like Shadows over Innistrad is great. And the conspiracy set that we were talking about last week that I guess finally has a real name, but I'm just not going to say it because I don't even know if it's the real name yet. But that's spoiling done right. And it's super fun when they do it the way that Wizards wants to, when they mail you a box with some silverware in it. And it's like, you should melt this down and protect your house from wolves. That's adorable. Spoiling like this is like not great. This is like kind of boring.
It removes all the hype out of it.
This is what we've been talking about the last 2 months with like kind of awful spoilers that are just like lists that some dude found online, and that's how we've gotten the cards.
Right.
In this particular case, it doesn't seem like this guy wants to like get attention. A lot of the time I can be like, no, this guy just wants attention, right? He's trolling everybody. Yeah, this one doesn't seem like the guy wants attention. This is a super random list.
And he kind of, he's raging against all this stuff. Like, where's Blind Seer, and where's Urtai, and where's Gerard, and all this other stuff. And
he's like mad at the cards he found. Like, I think that's kind of cool. And I think that if we go on the assumption that this is a real list, there are some interesting cards to include here, and there's some interesting cards that they didn't include, and of course we can talk about Vojak the Elderhorn, or Vojak Horseman, as I will nickname that card from now on, and it gives us baseless speculation to talk about the Viking block that could be coming after Innistrad. Right. So it's like whatever. This is a cool little thing to talk about, whether it's real or not. I'm going to put the likelihood of this being real at like 30%.
I'll
Well,
give
it's
it.
disappointing enough to be real.
Wow,
Right.
that's a way to
mean,
put it. That's the
there's
exact
just-
way to put it. You go.
I mean, I think if it was
fine.
too good, then it'd be too good to be true. But this is just like there's enough cards in here that make sense, and then there's enough cards in here where you're like, what? Where it's just enough where you're like, this sounds like some wizard stuff. So for example, okay, Phyrexian Arena, sure. Kamal, okay, I'm with you. Airtie, of course. Momir Vig, yes.
Sure.
Garrick,
All right, whatever.
Rurik Thar.
Yeah.
Conda, Lord of Django, sure. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, no. Dark Depths, yes. Legacy Weapon, yes. Yes. Final Judgment. Why Jin Gataxias? That's what blows me away. Memnarch, definitely. Bojack, bleh. Yeah, it's just enough. It's enough that I'm in yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's certainly a list of cards that you can put on a list of, if we were building from the Vault lore, what cards would we put in it?
Phage.
Right, and you're missing some real obvious ones here, right? You're missing Phage, you're missing Hero's Downfall is the big one that's missing here that I don't understand how you don't put a premium version of Hero's Downfall in a set like this.
Yeah.
So
Gerard.
without
You mentioned Gerard.
Gerard earlier in the pre-show we were
Well,
talking about.
I mean, Final Judgment was when, like, obviously the spirits like exiled all the bad creatures or something or other. I don't know, whatever it was, a huge story moment. But I can understand that part in terms of versus like a Hero's Downfall, which is, you know, like just a removal spell, 3-mana instant. This is a 6-mana exile all the things.
Okay.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I guess there's enough money. If this is a real set, you know, Riss is like $10, Jin Gitaxias is like $15. Obviously, Dark Depths is $1 million. But so like, there's enough money in here to
And
make
so
it
is the
worth
token.
it. And the token is going to be huge too, because you know you're not going to have the weird spiral foiling process that you had at the Cold Snap pre-release, but you will have the from the Vault foiling process.
You won't have the depression that the Cold Snap pre-release came with either.
Sure.
I swear to God, it was one of the saddest events I've ever been to.
Hey,
Well,
Cold
don't worry.
Snap gave
Evan,
me my
I have
win
a
condition.
Warm Island shirt to melt your AC heart.
Right. You weren't there. People
Snap
were just like,
pre-release.
they were just like looking down and they were just like going to their thing and they would sit down to draft and they'd look and they wouldn't find any ripple spells and they'd just be,
And just be sad.
and they would just pick whatever. Aurochs, all right, let's go. I mean, you know, it was so. There was only one pre-release that was more depressing than Cold Snap, and that was Saviors of Kamigawa. I mean, you want to talk about people who look like they just got kicked in the junk for like hours? That
Did they get kicked right in the Iganjos?
They got hurt. So all right. So let's move beyond a little bit of baseless speculation. I do want to bring back up Conspiracy. I brought up the page here announcing Conspiracy take the crown.
Right.
I think Wizards is done. They tried to say we're 100% serious, but they
I've been
felt like they
hurt
were
before,
serious.
Wizards.
You don't know. All right.
No,
so
Take the Crown is a good name.
Take the Crown is good because it seems apparent that someone is going to have the crown, and then everyone and whoever has the crown is going to be like this person who gets like this some special bonus that only they get to enjoy because they have the crown and nobody else does. You know, who's going to claim it? Clearly the crown is up for grabs and all this other stuff, and you know, so it's very cute. It's very cool. It has some really sweet artwork that I have up on the screen now, which is amazing. Conspiracy, a super sweet design, and it seems right now that, and we talked about this a little bit last week, that you know, there's a lot of products coming out this year, and I hope Conspiracy does well enough that we keep seeing these types of really weird, niche, cool products that work.
Yeah.
So there you go. So we're going to go on to Gathering the Townsfolk, as would do. And Wizards announced, thank you Wizards, they changed the Pro Tour Sunday playoff sideboarding.
Yeah.
Where the first two games will be pre-sideboarded, unsideboarded, and then the latter 3 will be sideboarded. So if somebody's up 2-0, well, you're going to have sideboarded games the rest of the time. Or a lot of times what happens in Magic is we see, I'm on the play, I win, you're on the play, you win. Okay, now we get to sideboards, and now we see what really kind of happens. I more or less instantly tweeted at Cedric Phillips, like, come on, man, you know you're going to adopt this. Don't be coy about it. Just go ahead and do it, because you want to make sure that the Pro Tour leads the way. Okay, yeah. Pro Tour's doing it. Everybody else can do it. If you're holding a big event out there in the world, copy this model because this is the model that says we're serious. Like, this is serious business Magic when you're in like the top 8 of a Pro Tour and you're in the top 8 of Invitational. This is how you can treat those types of things. So it's unique. And honestly, I was just completely sidelined by this one. I was like, where in the hell did this thing come from? Okay. There was no uproar over this. It was brought up a few times.
There was concern for people who played like more linear decks like Affinity that were like, this is going to lead to more sideboarded games for a deck like Affinity that is very weak to certain kinds of hate. You're giving them, you're giving them more games to really kind of hinder you. And so this kind of gives them,
so it's just better. It's better for Affinity.
Yeah, it's better for decks like that rather than going, well, I guess I'm playing 4 games with a Shatterstorm. Like, woo! Like, no, that's not fun.
And it's true. Absolutely. And other people know that, LSV, I'm sure, has advocated this for a while. And I'm sure other pros have advocated for it. But again, there was no like campaign that preceded this. There was no outrage that happened because of no sideboard, because of sideboard from game 2 on, XYZ happened to the top 8 of the Pro Tour. That's not where this came from.
Well, I also think it's because the players that this is going to affect, I think Frank Karsten wrote an article about this, or not specifically this, but I think he just wrote like an updated Affinity article, and I think he mentioned this, and he just was kind of like, well, it's nothing we're not used to, so we're just going to power through. I think that audience for it is not the type to crusade against this. They're just like, well, this is what it is, and so I need to be prepared for that, and that's what I'm going to do. Like, I think that might have been the reason why it wasn't so loud, is they just know what they need to do,
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing is, like, let's be real. First of all, this is affecting 0.00001% of the population in terms of actual playing.
True.
And it's going to be more entertaining for a vast majority of the people who are watching the top 8. Like, more people watch the top 8 than play in the top 8. That's math. I'm not a math scientist, but I think that 10,000 is a bigger number than 8. So I think that this is more of a...
I think you got there, buddy.
I think I'm close, at least. I think that this is more of a coverage decision. It makes it more fun to watch.
Sure.
The other thing about this that I like is, as you were mentioning, there was no really build-up. There was no discussion on Twitter saying we need to change this. In much the same way that there wasn't really much on Twitter before they changed the mulligan rule. And that has been universally accepted and said, this is great. We're all on board with it. This is a similar situation where it was just like Wizards sort of stumbled upon a thing that they were like, no one's really in uproar about this, but I think that this is just 100% good, so let's just do it. And I think that that's what we've come across here, is just a thing that everyone can... I mean, I have not seen any big opinions of being like, no, this is horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who are like, change is tough, but... nobody's like, this is a bad move that they will immediately regret.
I think Aaron can agree that 4 games facing Rest in Peace is not a world
right
you want to live in. Now, is it?
Shut it down.
Here we go.
We're done.
See, that's how we needed to sell it to Eric.
There we go.
Nope.
So thanks, Wizards, for that. You did a great job. We're going to move on to splash damage. Now, splash damage is when it's not magic per se, but it does pertain to it. There is a little card game called Epic. It was based on a Kickstarter and now is a product that is sold in game stores. It's sold at coolstuffinc.com because that's my employer. Yep. Yeah.
Subtle.
Hashtag sellout. Yeah, I got it. Regardless, I'm bringing up the website now for the Epic card game that have announced a $100,000 World Championship that happens in November in Boston. That's where Darwin Castle and Robert Doherty, the game designers of Epic, who run, I think it's White Wizards Games. Yeah, White Wizard Games, who are holding this. And there's going to be qualifiers that happen. There's going to be some that happen at Gen Con, which I'm attending. So if you're at Gen Con and you see me, give me a high five.
I have reason to go now.
There you go. I'm going. It's going to be great. And there's other qualifiers at South by Southwest Gaming. There's Origins Game Fair, so on and so forth. And there's the ability to both play in a limited event or constructed event. Epic is what they call it's like a living card game, I guess is the right term, where when you buy a set of Epic, you get all of the cards. If you want to get a play set of everything, you need to buy 3 sets of it, because you can play a max of 3 of one card, as I understand it. But regardless, and it's a really interesting game because everything costs 0 or 1 mana. Everything.
Oh, okay.
Everything. So a 10/10 dragon, 1 mana.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to play the
dude.
game, so I don't know what that means.
1 mana.
Like, I don't know how the mana system works, so it's in the past we've seen Magic is games come and go. Magic is always there. But now we're finally starting to see games created by Magic players. They know they've been in them streets, and they know what it takes to keep a game alive. And so now you're seeing, Epic, and you're seeing, the Direwolf team just came out with a new game also. They don't have a huge $100,000 Epic World Championships that's happening, but I think that when you have the expertise of people like Hall of Famers in Magic the Gathering, Rob Doherty and Darwin Castle behind you, you know what it takes to create a game that won't just fizzle out. We've seen trading card games that were popular for a while come and go. We saw the Versus system come and go. We've seen Legends of the Five Rings sort of hang around. We've seen Pokemon sort of hang around.
That's the game, right?
Sort of. I mean,
Kaijudo's a game that I was really invested in and really enjoyed quite a bit, and that came and went also, and that was done by Wizards of the Coast. Epic looks like a game that could. I mean, it's obviously way too early to tell if it'll survive. But I'm more than optimistic about it. It looks super sweet.
And it's about to come out with its first expansion. Yep. And it has the base game out. And if you buy 3 sets of it, which they're $10 a pop where I work, and you can get a whole play set of everything. Aaron, I have to do these things. First of all, it does look like a sweet game. And second of all, you can save money. Regardless, I know.
Well, given their success rate with Star Realms, Star Realms has been a huge success, so I'm inclined to think that this will be too. But I think the one thing I really like about this, and Darwin's actually sending me a free set next week, so I can play with it. So thank you, Darwin.
Yay.
Love you, Darwin. And
I just like that there's a card called Raging T-Rex. That's what I like about the game thus far.
I mean, you're technically on a podcast with a Raging T-Rex, but...
Wow.
I own it. No, but I'm just saying is, I really like this game, and I think one of the reasons I like this game is that I don't think that there's counterspells in this game. Like, I could have sworn somebody told me there were no counterspells, and the thing I like about a game like this is that they're able to, not necessarily mistakes that Magic has made, but just things that they've seen kind of. I think even Morrow admitted it at one point that counter spells, they've been looking to sort of reduce the power level of counter spells, because for a while there it was getting kind of crazy. And so it's great for a game like this to come around and say, okay, we've seen this thing kind of go awry as the years go by, and so we're just not going to do that anymore. Or we see people having issues with mana screw, mana flood, and we want to take that out of the equation. And Magic can't really go back and errata these things. These are things that we're just sort of stuck with, where you can say that counter spells are bad or too powerful, but you can't just not make counter spells anymore. You've still got to turn them out. And for a game that's brand new, they don't have that problem. They can look at the history and say these things didn't work, or these things have kind of run their course, and we're just not going to institute them. And so it kind of gives you a glimpse as to what would Magic be like if we didn't have these things, and if we could go back and say that was a mistake, what would the game be like? And so I'm really looking forward to getting my set and playing this and trying it out. So
it's just at the beginning of your turn you get a mana, and you can play whatever you want. You can play your huge T-Rexy monster, or you can play your 0 mana 5/2 haste guy, and that would be sweet. There's the things that happen. There's actually a lot very similar to Versus System, where Versus System came out, had its thing, UDE, straight in the ground, and then they brought it back as a living card game, but then they couldn't use that term because another company had trademarked it, so oops. So they called it the 2PCG, the 2-player card game.
Sure.
But the Versus card game is awesome. The new one is fantastic. I'm serious. I love it. It's great. And when you buy a set of it, you get a play set of everything. You actually don't get a full play set of some basic cards, but I'm not going to get into it. Regardless, you get, but just like you need to buy 3 copies of Epic, Versus System a little bit the same way in some regards. Regardless, you have a full set of the game. It's fantastic. There's no opening boosters and hoping you get in a mythic whatever, or you have to go buy singles somewhere. You just get all the components. And Epic's the same way. And Star Realms the same way, where you buy a set, and that's the game. Enjoy it. You can do whatever you want with it. And I'm anxiously awaiting the new Versus System expansion called Defenders, and I can't wait to play it, because the original, the Versus 2 PCG, it had a $10,000 tournament at Gen Con when it was released, where people got to build decks and check it out. And just like here, they're having a huge event. They're having people build decks for it. I think that's really cool, and it just it promotes the game. A lot of Magic players now invested and interested in what happens. You throw 100K at something, all of a sudden people get really excited and want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if this list kind of goes on and forward. Something else that we also touched on real briefly, the other card game thing, which is there's Hex, and from Direwolf there's Eternal, which isn't even out yet.
Right.
But there's been a few beta games played online via LSD's
Heard good
channel.
things too.
These are all like I try to at least give a shot to all these new card games, and I usually only like about 30, maybe 20% of them. Right. Hearthstone is one that actually stuck with me because it has some cool things going on with it. Kaijudo stuck with me because it had some cool, interesting things happening. The fact that people like Darwin and Rob are in charge of this game, first of all, leads me to believe the counterspells won't be as big of a thing because they're all about the green-white beats and attacking people. Yeah, if you think of two Hall of Famers that play counterspells, those aren't two of them.
Those ain't the ones.
But yeah, those aren't the ones. But I think that when you have big names like that attached to a project like this, you can't help but lend a little bit more clout to those plans. And so I'm really excited to see what they've cooked up.
Yeah. So I think they did great there. I think it's really interesting that like Hearthstone, like it hit the gusher. It hit the oil gusher of, oh my God, we have unlocked millions of dollars, and oh crap, everybody's running for it, man. There's digital versions of this game, or there's this other new digital card game, and there's this other card game, and all of a sudden it's a digital card game with an RTS element or some sort of strategic blah, 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 and it's always digital, and they're all collectible cards, and you can just pour money into it, and that's what they want. And so there's going to be that kind of like, and it happened in the 90s with the paper cards. You remember? There was Vampire, The Eternal Struggle. There was Mech Warrior. There was, I mean, there was just.
You forgot one of the greats. You forgot Marvel Overpower.
Marvel Overpower. Yeah. So
love it.
There was just infinite card games that popped up. Why? Because it was like, well, Magic's unlocked this huge font of money. Hearthstone has unlocked this huge font of money, and all we have to do is make a card game that looks kind of, sort of, and feels sort of like that, and we can make all the monies together. High five. But that's not how it's going to work. And eventually, you're going to have these games kind of just sort of fade off because they can't sustain themselves either in R&D, art costs, technology costs, or just keeping people excited and playing. Yep. So there's
so
going to be a point
you're saying it's a font of infertility. Did you see what I did there?
I can't with you anymore.
We're just done.
I try.
Yeah. And the Star Wars CCG, which
we don't discuss that.
We don't talk about the Star Wars CCG.
No.
Hey.
It's like Carrie Hilson. We don't talk about her anymore.
What you know about Carrie Hilson?
I don't talk about her anymore. Is all I know.
You mess with me, and I'll start waxing poetic.
You mess with Queen Bee, and you get cut off.
I'm just saying.
It's what happens.
You get cut.
Julius.
You get cut. All I'm saying is I can gush about the G.I. Joe TCG, but that didn't live either.
It was a fun game too, but
so
all right, we're
good.
I did like the Star Trek one. I did like the Next Generation one.
There you go. Any card game that involves dice, I generally don't like it.
Really?
I really hate dice as a randomized element. I just hate it. If I have to reveal the top card of my library for a thing that's random, I'm okay with that. And that's exactly what G.I. Joe did.
It's funny, I used to play the Pokemon card game, Don't Judge Me, and instead of flipping a coin, a lot of times you would just use a dice because it's easier, and so, even was heads and odd was tails, and I remember I played a Vileplume deck, and Vileplume had this attack where you had to flip 3 coins, and so you would roll 3 dice to see if you dealt damage or not, so that was fun memories for me.
Wow. Okay, so there's our CCG nerdy stories, as we do.
Perfect.
Now, before we get to the finisher, there's a very special announcement from our one and only Reuben Bressler. Reuben, what's going on in your life, buddy?
Yeah. So, hi everyone. So remember a little while ago, Evan, AJ Soccer and I flew to Seattle on a whim because people were like, "Hey, we want more Magic coverage," and you are some of the people we trust to do that. And then after we did that, people were like, "That was great. What's next, though?" And we were like, "We don't have a plan, but something will happen." Well, where do I go from here? I think that the next step for me personally is to get back into both live coverage of Magic tournaments and pre-edited creative Magic content on a regular basis. And so, to that end, I'm announcing that I am going to be joining Tales of Adventure as their creative manager, and I'm going to be starting on April 1st. It's coming right up, so I'm moving to Philly, just outside Philly. I'll be moving to the Coopersburg area. And working with Tales of Adventure. And so in my new position, I'm going to be doing live Magic coverage. We want to do a lot of legacy coverage because that's a lot of what people have been asking for. Nice. People want the newsing back. People want the interviewsing back. People want the main phase back. These are all things that I got to talk about with the guys over at Tales of Adventure. And so, I want to create, but I also want to create what the people want to watch. And so if you guys have ideas of what you guys want to watch, tell me. Especially Evan and Aaron, you guys can also tell me.
I could,
but I have a lot of creative control, and I get to sort of decide where I want this to go, and it's a really exciting opportunity, and I'm happy to do it. So, yeah,
I'm so
not
happy
an April
for you.
Fool's joke. I'll start April 1st, and I'll be making Magic coverage full time.
Congratulations!
So excited for you!
Yay! Woo! All right, so 2/3 of us now have a job in the industry.
Yeah,
Aaron, hey. This is the part where you two
hint
leave, leave the regular world and enter the wizarding world.
What are you doing? Working at a bank? Come on. Who works at a... I'm just kidding.
It pays for this loft that I'm sitting in.
Is it Gringotts? Is it a wizard bank? Not wizard bank.
No.
Guys like the loft. It's for the guys. So.
All right.
That's not what you in there. So regardless, Reuben, congratulations, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Proud of you, man.
You.
I won't. This is, by the way, this won't affect Magic Mike's in any way. I'm still going to be a full-time co-host on the show. Yeah. Just letting everybody know.
Yay! And that was actually built into the agreement.
Yes.
Because
made sure that was a thing because this is an important thing for me. I really like being on this show, and I think we do something unique for the community here. So.
Yeah. And I appreciate that very much. Now, given that you're going to be starting there on April 1st.
Yep.
However, in the middle of March, I will be visiting your town of Vegas.
My town for the time being.
I get to go to the Gamma Trade Show as part of my job at Cool Stuff Inc. So I'm going to the Gamma Trade Show, which is going to be really awesome. And as a result, I'm going to be in town. Me and Reuben, we're totally going to hang out. May do something.
Don't tell Evan I'm not going to hang out.
We're going to totally hang out. We're going to be
the
best buds. And I'm going to be over there every day. And I'm going to be like, hey, Reuben, hey, buddy, look, I got some Legos. And you're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, look, I built a spaceship. So there's that.
If you end up incarcerated, I can only bail one of you out. So don't make me choose.
Unfortunately, on 3/16, we will not be having a show. We will have a show next Wednesday. But the Wednesday thereafter, I will be in Nevada. We'll be hanging out, chilling. Maybe me and Reuben could do something together. I don't know.
We'll take some selfies.
Yeah, it'll be sweet.
I can go to my game store's legacy night for once. I'm so excited.
It'll be totally awesome. And you can face the rest in pieces, and then we can come and complain about it next week. And you'll be like,
perfect.
Blank.
We did it.
Low.
Hey, I'm just saying. There's going to be some hate in there. Regardless, congratulations, man.
Yes.
Let's move on to our finisher. So, the finisher with Reuben having recently moved, with myself having recently moved to Gathering Magic / Cool Stuff Inc. And Reuben announcing this evening his move to Tales of Adventure.
Right.
That leaves one last holdout and getting a gig in the industry. So, where in the media sphere do you think would be the best place for the Oestrus to end up?
It's Oestrus.
Oestrus. I'm a something Southern.
The Oestrus is not pleased that you screwed up her name.
Look, I got a red neck. I literally have a port wine stain that is red on my neck. I am a redneck.
Okay.
I get free passes.
Okay, well, I can finally confess that I am in talks with HGTV for my new show all about patios, gazebos, and courtyards on my new program, The Deck Tease.
Yeah!
Yeah. Well, with the NCAA's March Madness basketball tournament fast approaching, I'm looking forward to Aaron's new segment on Sports Center, Girlfriend Bracketology.
Nice. All I'm saying is Channing Tatum, Joe, what?
Manganiello.
And I wouldn't even go in there. Aaron Campbell, Magic Mike's 3, Mike's on Mike's.
Love it.
Yo, dog. Mike's on Mike's. Mike's.
I heard you like Mike's on Mike's, so give me Mike's while you Mike's.
The absolute worst. So, just kidding. All right, so we have, I'm just saying words. All right, so it's getting late. We're here wrapping up the end of our show. Reuben, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your news.
I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Aaron, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Congratulations, Reuben.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Heart.
That's the heart. That's the heart for everybody out there.
Reuben.
So we're going to move on to our outro slide. Ladies and gentlemen, that ends another episode of Magic Mics. Thank you for joining us here live to discuss all things magic. I want to thank my co-hosts, you guys, for watching. Hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Visit our website at magicmicspodcast.com. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmics every Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern. On Twitter at magicmicscast. On Reddit at reddit.com/r/magicmics. On Facebook at facebook.com/magicmics. Talk to us privately at magicmicspodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmicspodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.